What's up? So recently I made this SDL2 API quick reference and I posted it in a few Discord servers and someone was asking how I generated this. It was a lot of manual formatting, but I'm just going to quickly demonstrate how I did some of these things in case you want to do it without writing a full parser yourself. So I'm just going to make a new buffer here. So let's say for instance, we'll do this one because it's pretty short, basics, init and quit. This was based on the SDL wiki. So all these categories you can see are here. They're the exact same categories and subsegments. So init and shutdown. I did rename a couple of them. I named it init and quit because it's called quit instead of shutdown. So these 5 functions came from SDL.h. So I basically went to this category, clicked on SDL.h, and it brings me to the GitHub. I went to raw, copied this, pasted it in VS Code, and somewhere in here there's I guess I need to change this to tell it that it's C, so I have syntax highlighting so I can find stuff easier. I didn't keep any macros or function like macros or type defs or anything like that. I just kept these things. I just kept the lines that are documented that have extern decal spec SDL calls, so part of the public API of SDL. There's really great documentation in the SDL headers. If you want the full documentation, you should just use the SDL headers or the generated official wiki. The quick reference gets rid of all that stuff and basically just keeps the function signature and the first line, right? So what I did is delete all this stuff and keep the first line of the docs and keep the API call for all of the public methods. I'm pressing Control X right now to cut the line, which is basically the same as delete line like DD and Vim. And then Control Shift End, select the rest of the text, hit backspace. Now I have this, right? Which is basically the comments and then the public thing. I'm going to do Control H, which is replace. And what I did is, I actually don't know if I have it in my history still. I guess I don't have it in my history, but basically I wrote a regular expression that looks for, you have to click this little button to turn on regex, looks for the line, and then you make a match group. If you don't know regex, you can look it up and learn it. It's pretty awesome. Do new line, and then basically a second match group and trailing new line. And it matches each of these things in a group, right? If I say like find next, you'll notice it's highlighting each of these. And then I replaced it with the contents of the second match group, space, // and then the first match group, and \n. And what that does is this second match group is the extern decal spec line. The first match group is the comment with the star at the front. And I'm going to do replace all, and it puts it in this sort of format, which is closer. And then if you hold Alt Shift, at least in VS Code, and use your arrow keys, you can do column select, which you might not be familiar with. It actually isn't column select, it's multi-cursor mode, because you'll notice not all the cursors line up, which sometimes makes it a bit easier, sometimes harder. So I did Alt Shift, up arrow, and then Control Shift, right arrow will do word selection. So I deleted this part, extern decal spec, Control Shift, right arrow, let go of Shift and press right arrow again. And now I can get rid of the SDL calls, backspace, put a bunch of white space in here, do another Alt Shift up arrow, column select, hit right and left arrow keys while Control Shift is selected, and it does this sort of thing. So I'm just gonna select all the white space to the right of this before the words, hit backspace, that will line them up. I'm gonna do it actually again, so Alt Shift up arrow, and then Control Shift right arrow, and let go of all the keys and hit the right arrow once to do, put your cursor here, do this, same thing, Alt Shift up arrow, Control Shift right arrow, left, left. And then when I had, in this case it's pretty easy, I just have one line to fix, but some of these I had tons and tons of functions with lots of misaligned comments at this point. So what I did actually is I wrote another regex where I did space // space, which this doesn't even need to be a regex, it can just be a literal, And then I just typed a lot of spaces, so I just typed 4 spaces. I'm gonna hit Control C, V, 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 V. So I'm just typing a shit ton of spaces right now, and then I'm gonna hit // at the end, and Control Enter to run that. And I just shoved a bunch of white space before all the slashes here. I actually accidentally, I want to keep the space after the slashes as well. And then I do the same thing I did over here. So Alt-Shift down arrow, Control-Shift right arrow. You'll notice it goes a little too far, so while you're holding Control-Shift press left arrow to keep the flashes, and then do this. And then I manually added the headers, right? So you'll notice this is literally the same thing as what's in the reference. The spacing is a little different. I pretty much normalized the spacing to 2 spaces between the longest things, right? So like 2 spaces, 1, 2, 2 spaces, and 1, 2. Right, and that's how you get this. So if you do that for all of the SDL header files, and you delete all the extraneous stuff, all these comments are straight from the first line of the documentation. Sometimes there was some word wrapping, and I unwrapped it, so I kept the first sentence, even if it was spread across 3 lines, which would make this a little harder to automate. I guess you could look for the period or something, but yeah, that's essentially how I generated this. And then these things came from the link right here, ASCII art generated by. And I just said like whatever, share object support. You just use ANSI shadow font and then type cool stuff. And then I pasted it in here and added comment characters. I think it looks a lot cooler in green than it does in GitHub Raw. GitHub Raw, there's no syntax highlighting. However, the reason I linked to GitHub Raw instead of the actual gist, which exists somewhere, what is it? Oh, your gists. This thing is because for some reason GitHub's gist page word wraps, and I don't see any option. There might be like a URL thing, but it word wraps, so everything looks like crap, right? All the long comments are like randomly over here, and yeah, it's just way harder to read. So I just went to up here, clicked on raw. And then you get this, which unfortunately doesn't have nice syntax highlighting, but you can open this in your text editor of your choosing. Also, I'm sorry that the lines are so wide. Like some of these are, you know, very, very, very wide, but they're just long function signatures. I did word wrap a couple of them because they got like way too long, but yeah, it mostly fits on a 1080p monitor without any scrolling. I guess it does seem like there's something broken here, which is interesting. I guess I can fix that. I don't know why that's broken, but in any case, I will fix these 2 strange typos. I actually do know why that's broken, but there you have it. That is how I formatted it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy.